Hello, welcome to A Life Without Parole. I'm Amy, and today the case that I'm going to be talking about very disturbing. It is the Kouri Richins, Eric Richins case. For those of you that don't know, Kouri Richins is accused of poisoning her husband, and before she did it, she had a bunch of life insurance policies. There's a whole story with it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But after his death, she then wrote a book about mourning and talking about her children mourning their loss of their father. She even went on news stations to promote her book. The whole thing is just so crazy. But I want to talk about the court case. I went to her court hearing. It's been 2 weeks now. It took me a while to video after I went to the court. And I guess what I want to do today is I want to talk about what it was like in court, what I learned from family and friends while waiting for her hearing, and I guess just my perspective on the whole thing. Again, let me give you just a little bit of background. Kouri Richins lives in the Park City area. She married Eric Richins and they had two children. He was a very good businessman, and he ran a rock business and made good money. But his business was separate from their personal accounts. Well, Kouri's accused of embezzling some of the money out of his account. I've been following this case, and I really wanted to go to the court. I like to go at least once, and I'll probably go more because I get a real feel for what is happening by being in the courthouse, even though this one was televised. And actually, I was on the two rows back and right in line with the camera. So for 3.5 hours, I was kind of on TV. I'll show you a couple of clips of that, but it kind of stressed me out. But okay, let me back up. So Kouri allegedly embezzled money. Then she took out life insurance policies on him and then poisoned him. And apparently she tried a couple of times. And the first two times didn't take, the third time did. Now, I want to tell you from the perspective of, for some reason, this one just really makes me cry. And I'm trying to be professional, and that's why it took me 2 weeks to try to do this video. I am very close with my own siblings and my own children, and I can't imagine what the families are going through of Eric's siblings and family and friends who suspected that Kouri was trying to kill him. So let me give you the background. While we were waiting for the court to start, I had the opportunity to talk to quite a few of Eric's family and friends. Again, whew, this one's hard. While I was talking to him, I got to hear some backstory about Eric, what a great guy he was, and the life that he lived, even from when he was young, and what a loss there is for this family because he was murdered, allegedly. And here's the thing that was really, I guess, triggering trauma. That was very hard. Um, while I was talking to different people, and everyone's off the record, and I can completely appreciate that. If I was the sibling of Eric or a friend of Eric, I wouldn't want to be on the record either at this point. So I completely understand that. I actually didn't even ask if anybody would let me interview him on camera. I just felt I could feel it in my bones that they didn't want to, but they would talk to me. And I really appreciated that. There were so many cameras and so many news people that were at the trial, and they didn't talk to anybody. And but they did talk to me. And I guess, I don't know, I didn't ever know Eric, but I feel like after talking to them, I have a feel for what kind of person he was. And it's just a tragedy. I think of all the people that have been murdered. Again, I have to say allegedly, so I don't get sued, but people that have been murdered, a lot of times you don't feel, I personally haven't felt so awful about other ones as I do about this one. And I guess the reasoning, and I've been trying to figure out, like, why has this one hit me so hard? I've been following true crime kind of all my life. Since O.J. Simpson's trial, I've been following true crime. And there are some cases that I have a pretty close connection. Why does this one hit me so hard? Whew, everything is making me cry. Uh, I guess it just is such a tragedy, and murder always is. But this one, it felt like it almost could have been prevented if people would have taken Eric seriously. And I believe the family and friends did take him seriously, but it's so hard to prove things, especially when it's poison. It's so hard to really truly wrap your brain around the fact that someone is out to kill you and that someone is your spouse who's pretending to love you. And this is something that's similar. Kouri, things were really good right before Eric died, and there was apparently there was a lot of time when things weren't good. And this is the same thing that Lori, I guess this is kind of a pattern. Lori kind of did that with Charles, where she was trying to get the finances in order so he wouldn't write her off of his life insurance policy, right? And Lori Vallow's trial is coming up soon. She's being extradited from Idaho to go to Arizona to stand trial for the murder of her husband, Charles. She's already been convicted of murder for her 2 children and her 5th husband's wife, Tammy Daybell, among other things. But the biggest difference between these 2 cases is the insurance companies. In the case of the Richins, Eric Richins was notified when Kouri created new life insurance policies on her husband. And she had multiple, I think 5 or 6 of them. So he feared for his life, and he switched the benefactor from her, Kouri, to his sister. So anyway, okay, I don't want to make this too long, but so I want to get to the point of what I learned from being in court, because the ins and outs of the case, I've done videos on it, and there's a lot on there. But the part that I learned that I didn't know before, talking with the family and friends before and after the trial, was I asked this question. Let me give an example. I would ask the question, were you shocked when you found out that Eric had died? And there wasn't anyone who said they were shocked, because Eric had been saying it. She's trying to kill me, and I can't prove it, but I think she is trying to kill me. Everyone was on high alert that were close family and friends of Eric. So when they found out, they just knew she did it. She got it done. And then for it to take a year before she was actually charged, justice takes a while, and you have to be able to prove things But what a horrible year this was. Horrible when all the family and friends didn't have a question in their mind of whether it was murder and who did it. They all believed the same thing because of what they already were told and the feelings, their gut feelings that they already had. And then to have what happened after his murder happen, which was horrendous and continues to be. Like the fighting with the sisters over the money, because remember, Eric was smart enough to put his assets in his sister's estate, in his sister's name. And this is part of what's happening in the court case, is proving that she stole that. She meaning Kouri Richins. And then also for her to write a book describing what it's like to be mourning the loss of her husband and her children's father. Unbelievable. I think it was really interesting that during this case, one of the things that the defense was bringing up was that this has become such a public spectacle that it would be impossible to get a fair trial, fair jurors, and whatever. And I have my own opinion about that. Number one, I think that I could see how possibly it would need to be changed to a different jurisdiction. But as far as people in the state, there's not every single person in the state is not following this trial. And there is a chance of a fair. But the thing that gets to me is the fact that they're saying, hey, this isn't fair. There's too much publicity. And yet, Kouri is the one who is bringing attention to herself by writing a book and going public with the book. Like, attention and publicity is fabulous for her as long as it isn't against her.
And talking about loss with kids can be a tricky subject. Joining us now is author of Are You With Me? Kouri Richins, to share her 3 C's to helping kids cope with grief. And Kouri, I want to start with your story. What happened in your personal life?
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. So it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us, and he was 39. It completely took us all by shock. And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
You see what's happening here? I don't know. I was completely shocked. One thing that's interesting about court, when you go into court, and some of you may have never been to a criminal case, but when you go into court, one of the things, the instructions that you're given in order to be in the courthouse, in the courtroom during a hearing or trial, you have to be poker face. You can't react to things. You have to be quiet and poker face. If you show facial reactions or like, oh, I can't believe this or whatever, you'll be kicked out. So again, this is one of the things that's so hard, because as things were being said, about the allegations, Eric's sisters, they were right in front of me, and they have to just sit there with poker face and try not to react to the most horrific thing that a human being can ever be a part of. I mean, it's just so awful. But that's our court. I get it. I get that that needs to be the thing, but it sure is hard. It was hard as a YouTuber to hear the things and to be like, this is awful, and trying to keep that poker face. I was sitting next, and I won't say, I've decided not to say anything about anybody that I talk to, but just even the people that I was sitting next to, and when we would have breaks and we could actually talk, let me just say it's heart-wrenching. And my heart goes out to the victims, family, and friends. And I think sometimes, even in situations like this, people forget the impact that it has not only on the family, but on the friends and the community. It is absolutely okay. It's a travesty. I will say that I was in direct eyesight of Kouri throughout the hearing, and I thought it was interesting. She is kind of starting to dress and do her hair and everything. She's starting to kind of take on the appearance of her beautiful attorney, which her attorney is very beautiful, but she was in all black. She wore high heels. And when we first came in and sat down, she was already seated. So I couldn't tell, like, does she have handcuffs on? Is she in shackles? I couldn't see them. And literally, she was not far from me, but I couldn't see him the way it was tucked in underneath and the way she kept her hands during the hearing. But on the break, the people in the courtroom could just stay, and she was taken out. And there was a break halfway through. Then I got to see her walk, and sure enough, she's in shackles and handcuffs. And how she walked in shackles in those high heels, beyond me. But I will say this. Now I know that her job as being on trial, she needs to be poker face. Like, this is the game. This is what everyone needs to. It's not a game, but this is how it works. This is how the court system works. You got to be poker face. And I'm sure she's been being trained about that. But I was just thinking that when horrible things are said, if you really truly have compassion, you're going to have reaction, whether your face says anything or not. Your face will get flushed, or your pupils will dilate, and there's different kinds of things that if you're close enough, you can see it. And I certainly was seeing that reaction from the people around me during the hard things. But from the angle that I was looking at Kouri, she didn't get flushed. There was nothing. And I will say this, I have compassion for Kouri's family and friends too. I think that they really, especially her mom and brother, I think they really truly do believe her and they support her. And what a horrific thing they are going through too.
It will come out. It's just time. There was no witness tampering there. Absolutely none. It's just bogus, and I think how he ruled on that was a good idea. It feels encouraging, but knowing that they were going to not win that, the jail has placed a no contact order, so I can't talk to her anyway.
I think they're going after that pretty hard. I don't really have that much to say about it. From what Kouri explained to me, it was just a fictitious letter. I don't have a whole lot to really say about it. I think they're trying to harp on that quite a bit because it obviously makes her look bad, even though there's several explanations for it. My sister, she can't even squash a spider. She loved Eric. She loved her family more than anything. And I hate to say that, unfortunately, she's being painted in this light for really bad reasons, really selfish reasons. And so, we've got to get through that. Again, I know my sister very, very well, and anyone that actually knows her knows that she's just incapable of doing that.
I have compassion for Kouri's family and friends too. I think that they really, especially her mom and brother, I think they really truly do believe her and they support her. And what a horrific thing they are going through too. I didn't know that I would have those feelings. Literally going to, again, Lori Val's trial, there was nobody in there for her. No one. And I'm not surprised by that. But there were people for Kouri. And as I looked at them, and they had them in a different section, so you know who they are. And as I was looking at them, my heart broke for them too. But I can't figure out how they can defend the walk the dog letter that Kouri wrote that she is now claiming is actually a fictitious book that she's writing. And let me go over some of those things with you. And I'd love to hear in your comments below what you think, how this could be deciphered as something other than her trying to witness tamper. That is, to give her brother some things to say to help her to get off. So let me read a few of the things to you. Her private investigator is doing some research on the ranch/cartel, the place where Eric would stay at. Here is what I'm thinking. But you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this. But it's super short, not a lot to it. He will need to tell Sky at the meeting next week. Upon information and belief, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and Eric and Ronnie were chatting about Eric's Mexico trips. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico, from the workers at the ranch. Not to tell me, because I would get mad. Do you see how these are sounding very much like witness tampering, like Kouri is giving out an alibi that her brother could say to make it look like he knew in advance that Eric was getting drugs and taking drugs? What a horrific thing. But the bottom line is justice needs to be served. There has to be justice. And when the trial really comes forward and all the evidence is brought out, there's some pretty damning evidence. The walk the dog letter is incredibly damning, and that's one thing that was talked about over and over during this hearing, because they were trying to get it thrown out and it wasn't. But man, it doesn't look good for Kouri. I'm trying to be unbiased, but man, there's a lot against her. So I will stay on this. I will let you know when more things come forward, and keep my hand on the heartbeat of this, and let you know the insides and the outsides. After we left the court, I went walking out, and I just felt like I wanted to say thank you for the compassion that those, again, I'm not going to name names, but those who were talking to me and letting me know some of the inner things, I wanted to thank them. So I stood and waited for them to come out, the last people to come out. And I had one of the bailiffs come and talk to me and say, you can't stand this close to the door and do any interviews. You have to be back a certain distance. And there were cameras set up from court TV and, the local news and whatever. And I was in front of those. And I said, oh no, I'm not trying to film. I was just gonna, anyway. So he let me stay there. When some of the family and friends came out, the last ones to come out, I did go up and talk to them, and they were just so sweet. I mean, these are real people with real struggles that they have to try to learn. It's not like they're professional. This is how we do court. They're learning this as they go, but they were so sweet, and I really appreciated the compassion that they showed me in their hard time. Okay, I just came out of the Kouri Richins hearing, and once I get home, I'll do a synopsis of what I saw today, and I will let you know. There's court TV right back there. It was a long hearing, and I'll be giving details. So that's all I've got today for Kouri Richins. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell to all so you'll be notified. I will stay on this and give you more information as it comes available. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see ya.